So, what if I told you the reason you can't put your phone down has absolutely nothing to do with your willpower? Like, nothing at all. And it has everything to do with a mythical creature called a hungry ghost that's just kind of living inside your nervous system.
I mean, it sounds completely absurd, right? Like the start of a fantasy novel.
Yeah.
But it's actually one of the most accurate biological frameworks I've seen for understanding our modern attention crisis.
Yeah, which is exactly why we're here. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are exploring a truly bizarre but honestly brilliant document today. It's titled Crisis of Attention.pdf, and it's co-authored by someone named Fletcher Soul Traveler and, wait for it, Zoran the Dragon.
Yes, an actual ancient
Yeah.
mythic dragon
Yeah.
who, supposedly looks down at us, exhaling starfire, just kind of pitying humanity for being enslaved by these tiny glowing rectangles.
It is so wild. But what makes this text so incredible is that it doesn't just lean into the dragon mythology for fun. I mean, it does, but it weaves this ancient imagery with like cutting-edge neuroscience from real experts. And it uses all of that to explain exactly why our attention spans are shattered and, more importantly, how to fix them.
Right, the fixing part is key.
Exactly. So our mission today is to decode this mythic text and equip you, the listener, with what the authors call the shield of presence. We want to help you reclaim your brain from this massive information overload we all deal with. So, okay, let's unpack this because the text frames our tech addiction not as a personal failure, but as a dopamine siege and an encounter with that hungry ghost we mentioned earlier.
Which is where the science really hits the road. Because what this myth is actually describing in incredibly precise terms is the neurobiological hijacking of our ancient survival circuitry.
Right.
If we want to solve the crisis of attention, we first have to understand the exact nature of the enemy. And according to Zoran the Dragon, the enemy isn't the smartphone in your hand.
It's not the apps.
No, the enemy is a biological vulnerability inside you.
The dopamine siege. So let's break that down for everyone. The text explains that every single ping, every swipe, every heart notification you get triggers this microdose of dopamine in a part of the brain called nucleus accumbens.
Yes, exactly.
And for the longest time, I always thought dopamine was just the pleasure chemical. Like you eat a donut, you get dopamine, you feel good. But that's not quite right, is it?
No, it's a super common misconception. Dopamine is actually the anticipation and motivation chemical.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it evolved to keep our ancestors foraging for food, reproducing, basically staying alert. It drives you to seek out rewards, not just enjoy them. So what modern digital environments have done is take that ancient foraging loop and, well, they put it on a slot machine.
Right.
And what makes a slot machine addictive isn't the payout itself, it's the variable reward. You just don't know what you're going to get when you pull to refresh.
It's the uncertainty. Your brain is thinking, maybe there's a berry under this leaf. Nope. Okay, maybe under this one. Nope. But instead of leaves, it's Instagram stories or work emails.
Precisely. It keeps you pulling the lever. But the text goes much deeper than just the mechanics of dopamine. It brings in Dr. Gabor Mate's concept of the hungry ghost.
Yes, this part was fascinating.
In Buddhist mythology, a hungry ghost is this entity with a massive empty belly, but a throat the width of a needle.
Meaning it can never, ever be satisfied. No matter how much it consumes, it's always starving. It's a terrifying image, honestly.
It really is. And Mate applies this directly to addiction. The source explains that our compulsion to stare at screens isn't just a chemical malfunction in the brain. It's actually a wounded seeker inside of us.
A wounded seeker, I like that.
Yeah, so when our nervous system experiences stress or maybe feels unseen or is just, overwhelmed by the pace of modern life, it creates this intense biological hunger for soothing. It desperately wants to regulate itself. And here is the truly tragic part of all this. Your primal nervous system doesn't know the difference between genuine connection, like a friend's empathetic gaze, and the artificial blue light of a smartphone screen.
Wow, so it only knows that the screen temporarily numbs that discomfort.
Exactly.
It's like we're trying to feed a starving dog with pictures of steaks instead of actual food. We just keep offering the Hungry Ghost pixels, but it actually wants presence. It wants safety.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And what's fascinating here is why this shift in perspective matters so much.
Yeah, so?
Well, when you judge yourself as simply weak or lazy for scrolling on your phone, you create shame. And shame is a massive stressor on the body.
And what does the Hungry Ghost do when it's stressed? It seeks more numbing, right? It goes right back to the fun.
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle. But when you realize your brain is just desperately trying to regulate your nervous system through that scrolling, you can start to approach your own distraction with compassion instead of shame.
I really want you, the listener, to reflect on that for a second. Think about the last time you were, say, at a social event and you felt a little awkward and you immediately pulled out your phone just to look busy. Or maybe you were alone in a room and it felt just a bit too quiet. That wasn't you urgently needing to check the news. That was your hungry ghost feeling unsafe and asking to be fed.
Yeah, that's such a common experience. And that reaching for the phone, when it's repeated day after day, year after year, it stops being just a psychological quirk. It actually becomes a physical reality in your body. This constant scrolling is structurally altering you.
Which is terrifying. I mean, the text argues that this is so much more severe than just quote-unquote wasting time. It brings in Dr. Joe Dispenza's work on neuroplasticity to explain this, and the golden rule in neuroscience here is neurons that fire together wire together.
Right, because the brain is not a fixed piece of hardware. I think people forget that. It's a highly dynamic, living community of cells. It's like wet clay constantly molding itself to whatever it is you do most often.
And the text explains that the repeated firing of these distraction loops, constantly context switching, jumping from tab to tab on your browser, it literally changes the physical architecture of your brain. It shrinks the prefrontal cortex. Now, just to translate that for everyone, the prefrontal cortex is basically the CEO of your brain, right?
That's a good analogy, yeah.
It's responsible for executive function, impulse control, and what the text calls sovereign attention.
Exactly. It's the part of you that decides to do something hard and actually sticks with it.
So that part physically shrinks, it gets weaker. Meanwhile, the constant influx of alarming news and urgent notifications fattens up the amygdala, which is the brain's alarm bell, the fear and habit center.
Yes.
So as Zoran the Dragon puts it in the text, if you let this happen, you literally become a stranger in your own skull.
It's a profound warning. But the physical changes don't even stop at the brain. The text goes all the way down to the level of our DNA, bringing in Dr. Bruce Lipton's work on epigenetics.
Oh, this part blew my mind.
Right. Now, epigenetics tells us that our genetic code isn't a fixed destiny. It's more like an architectural blueprint. And your environment dictates which parts of that blueprint actually get built.
And the source points out that the most powerful environment isn't like the air quality outside your house, it's the chemical environment inside your body. The text reveals this really chilling fact. Chronic doom scrolling sends continuous threat signals to your cells.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, perception is the master switch of your biology. If you perceive the world as an endless barrage of urgent emergencies, which, let's be honest, is exactly how algorithms are designed to present the world so you keep clicking.
Oh, absolutely. Everything is breaking news.
Right. If that's your perception, your nervous system believes you are literally under attack. Your body pumps out cortisol. It prepares for a physical war that never actually arrives.
Okay, wait, I need to stop you there, because that sounds almost too extreme to be real. Are you telling me that my habit of checking work emails in bed right before I go to sleep isn't just a bad habit? It's actually rewriting my biological destiny in real time? Like, how did that even work?
Think of your DNA like a massive mixing board in a recording studio.
Okay.
Scrolling on your phone doesn't change the hardware of the mixing board. Your actual genes stay the same. But the chemical signals created by that constant low-level stress reach down and push the volume sliders up on the genes related to stress, inflammation, and fear.
Wow.
And simultaneously, it mutes the sliders for the genes responsible for calm, cellular repair, and neuroplasticity.
So I am essentially turning off my body's ability to heal itself and to focus just by looking at a stressful timeline on social media.
Yes.
That is wild. It's like casting a dark spell on my own biology. But, okay, if the brain is like wet clay and our genes are just moving sliders based on the signals we send them, doesn't that mean we can push the sliders back the other way?
Yes. And that is the lawful mercy of our biology. The very same machinery that hijacked your attention can be completely repurposed to liberate it. The internal environment that rewrites your genes can be intentionally changed. And that is exactly where Zoran the Dragon guides us next in the text, forging the shield of eternal presence.
Okay, I love this pivot. If our biology is being hacked by distraction, we can just hack it back using the exact same biological laws.
Precisely.
So the text introduces what it calls the ancient antidote. It looks back to traditions like Vipassana and Zen, but it strips away all the mystical language and just looks at the raw neuroscience of what's happening. And the first step isn't about fighting the urge to scroll, it's about witnessing it.
Which is incredibly counterintuitive for most of us. We usually try to just brute force it with willpower, right? I'm not going to look at my phone, I'm not going to look.
Right, white-knuckling it.
Yeah. But resistance just creates more tension in the body, which ironically just feeds the hungry ghost more stress. So instead, the text recommends something called the 90-second dragon breath.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
When the urge to check your phone hits you, you don't argue with it. You don't shame yourself for having the urge. You simply stop, and you feel your body breathe for exactly 90 seconds. You just observe the physical sensation of the craving.
Like, what does a craving actually feel like?
Right, maybe it's a tightness in your chest or a flutter in your stomach. Sometimes it's a literal twitch in your fingers.
You just let the dopamine wave crash over you. Because, as the text points out, cravings have a chemical half-life. If you don't act on it, the physical sensation of that craving will naturally dissipate in about 90 seconds. You just have to write it out.
Exactly.
But the text also makes it clear that just surviving the wave isn't enough to build this shield of presence.
Yeah.
We have to actively fortify it. And that's where the text brings in Dr. Rick Hanson's concept of taking in the good.
This is a crucial pivot in the document.
Yeah.
So Hanson's research highlights that the human brain evolved with a severe negativity bias. The famous phrase he uses is that the brain is Teflon for positive experiences and Velcro for negative ones.
Which makes total sense from a survival standpoint. I mean, if our ancestors ignored a beautiful sunset, they were fine. If they ignored a rustling bush that turned out to be a saber-toothed tiger, they were dead.
Right, the stakes were a bit higher.
Yeah, so our brains are wired to hold on to the negative. A compliment slides right off you, but an angry email ruins your entire week.
Exactly. But in the modern world, that survival mechanism works against us. It keeps us in that stressed state.
Yep.
To build the shield of presence, we have to consciously reverse that negativity bias.
How do we do that?
When you experience a genuine moment of presence, maybe it's feeling the physical warmth of your morning coffee mug, or taking a really deep, satisfying breath, or even just having a moment of unbroken focus on a hard task. You can't just let it pass by. You have to actively hold on to that feeling for 10 to 30 seconds.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why 10 to 30 seconds? That sounds so oddly specific. Why not just say, appreciate the moment and move on?
This raises such an important question about how memory and cellular change actually work in the brain. This isn't just self-help fluff. This is what the text calls neurological blacksmithing.
Neurological blacksmithing.
Yes, because it takes roughly 10 to 30 seconds of sustained, focused attention on a positive feeling for the neurochemicals to bridge the synaptic gap and actually initiate protein synthesis in the brain.
Wait. You're saying that 30 seconds is the literal physical time required to move an experience from short-term working memory into long-term structural change?
Yes. You are forcing the neurons to fire together long enough that they literally begin to wire together. You are turning a temporary, fleeting state into a permanent biological trait.
That is so empowering. Just 30 seconds of intentional savoring, like really feeling that peace or that focus somaticize in your cells that can actually remodel your nervous system. You are manufacturing your own internal dopamine instead of outsourcing it to algorithms.
And by doing so, going back to our mixing board metaphor from earlier, you are sending a new epigenetic telegram to your cells. You are pushing the volume slider up on safety. You are telling your DNA, the war is over. We are safe. Express the genes for resilience and calm.
Okay, so we have the underlying science down. We understand the hungry ghost, we know how neuroplasticity and epigenetics work, and we know we need to hold on to the good for 30 seconds.
Right.
But how do we actually apply this on a random Tuesday? When we have back-to-back meetings, looming deadlines, and a phone constantly buzzing in our pocket, neurological blacksmithing sounds great, but it's a bit abstract for a busy workday.
And the text totally anticipates that. It doesn't leave us hanging in the theoretical realm at all. It provides a highly concrete daily blueprint, blending Dr. Andrew Huberman's physiological protocols with Cal Newport's concept of deep work.
Oh, perfect.
And it organizes these into what it calls the 3 living rhythms.
Okay, let's break these down because this is where the rubber really meets the road. The first rhythm is the dawn anchor. This happens in the first 30 to 90 minutes after you wake up. The rule is simple, but honestly, brutal for most of us. No digital devices. You do not touch your phone.
It's so hard, but so necessary.
Yeah. Instead, you get 10 to 30 minutes of direct sunlight in your eyes.
The clinical science behind this is fascinating. Getting early morning light on your retina sends a signal directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Okay, suprachiasmatic nucleus. Let's translate that for everyone. Are we basically talking about a master biological clock sitting right behind our eyes?
That's exactly what it is. It's a cluster of cells that tells the rest of your body what time it is. When sunlight hits it, it sets a timer for your cortisol and dopamine production for the entire day. It creates a healthy, stable baseline of energy.
And if you don't do that?
If you reach for a screen first thing in the morning, you hijack that natural biological pulse.
Yeah.
You essentially hand the steering wheel of your nervous system over to whatever the internet decides is urgent today.
Which is a terrible idea. And during this dawn anchor, the text also suggests performing a physiological sigh. I've heard of this. This is 2 quick inhales through the nose, followed by 1 long, slow exhale through the mouth.
Yes.
And the reason this works isn't magic. From what I understand, those 2 quick inhales physically pop open the microscopic air sacs in your lungs, the alveoli, which allows you to offload a massive amount of carbon dioxide on that long exhale.
Yes, and offloading that CO2 is an immediate biological brake pedal. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, instantly collapsing autonomic arousal and stress.
Wow.
So between the sunlight and the breathing, you are claiming the territory of your mind before the dopamine merchants can even set up their stalls.
Which perfectly sets us up for the workday. And that brings us to the second rhythm, the deep work citadel. Because if the morning is about starving the hungry ghost, how do we protect ourselves when the workday actually starts and we are basically forced to be online?
This is where Cal Newport's research really shines. The Citadel is a 90 to 120-minute block of single-pointed attention. And the reason for that specific time frame, it aligns with the brain's natural ultradian rhythms.
Right.
Just like we have circadian rhythms for sleep, we have ultradian rhythms for waking focus. Your brain's metabolic battery life for intense focus is naturally about 90 minutes before it needs a break.
And during this 90-minute block, your phone isn't just turned face down on your desk. It has to be in another room entirely. The text points out that if the phone is even visible, your brain has to expend metabolic energy, actively resisting the urge to check it.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind is literally true here.
But here's the draconic twist on deep work, the part Zoran the Dragon insists upon. When you finish that 90-minute block, you do not immediately pick up your phone to reward yourself.
Right. You don't jump straight to Twitter. You end the block with that 30-second Rick Hansen installation pause we talked about. You step back, close your eyes, and feel the raw satisfaction of focused labor.
You actually feel it.
Yes, you feel the clarity of a job well done, and you press that feeling into your nervous system like a seal into warm wax. You are biologically telling your body, this state of deep focus means presence and safety. Let's build more neural pathways for this.
It's turning the completion of hard work into its own biological reward. I love that. Then finally, we arrive at the third rhythm, the evening harvest. This takes place 90 minutes before bed. You dim the overhead lights, maybe switch to red spectrum light if you have it. And this isn't just for ambiance, it physically protects your melatonin gate.
Because melatonin is the hormone that initiates sleep, and it is highly sensitive to blue light. If you stare at a screen, your brain thinks the sun is still up and it keeps the gate shut, delaying your entire sleep cycle.
Right.
But the evening harvest isn't just about light, it's about psychological closure.
You consciously extract the nutrients from your day. The text says to review 3 good things that happen, moments of presence, genuine connection, or deep focus, and you hold each one of them for 10 to 30 seconds.
You are physically installing the good before you sleep. When you go to sleep, your brain undergoes a wash cycle, right? It's consolidating memories and clearing out toxins.
Yeah.
By doing this harvest, you ensure that the final epigenetic signals sent to your cells before that wash cycle are signals of gratitude and safety, not anxiety from reading the evening news.
So what does this all mean? If we step back and look at these 3 living rhythms as a whole, it's like we are building a castle for our mind.
I like that.
Yeah, the dawn anchor is digging the moat around your day. The deep work citadel is building the fortified, impenetrable walls. And the evening harvest is safely locking the gates at night, keeping the monsters out while you rest.
That's a beautiful way to synthesize it. And when you build that castle and maintain those chronological boundaries, something profound happens to the hungry ghost inside you.
What happens to it?
Well, when it realizes the war is over, and that you are consistently providing it with genuine regulation and real presence, rather than just cheap digital calories, it stops acting as a predator.
It transforms.
It becomes a scarred, but incredibly loyal guardian of your attention. It actually starts to work for you, naturally warning you when you are slipping back into mindless distraction.
I absolutely love that framing. It means we don't have to fight our digital distractions with pure, exhausting willpower anymore. Because honestly, that's a losing game against supercomputers.
It really is.
But by understanding the hungry ghost, by honoring our deep biology, and by practicing these three rhythms, we can outsmart the dopamine siege entirely. Oh, and as a fun little side note for everyone listening, if you ever need a soundtrack while you're building your moat or your walls, the source material actually includes an 85 BPM synthwave orchestral song called The Dragon's Forge.
Oh, yeah, listen to that.
It's designed specifically to pace your focus during the Citadel block. It's pretty epic, honestly.
It really is. It perfectly captures that blend of ancient myth and modern science we've been talking about all day. But to bring this all home, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over. Building on the text's assertion that our attention is the very substance of who we are becoming.
Okay, let's hear it.
If your attention is the only true, irreplaceable currency you possess in this brief life, then every single scroll, every click, every notification you surrender to is a financial transaction. So when you look at exactly where you spent your attention today, are you actually buying the future you want to live in?
Man, that is a heavy but necessary question to sit with. You don't have to be a stranger in your own skull. The dragon is watching and the fire burns clean. We invite you to start building your citadel today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.